Okay, it looks like we're live. Let me change a few settings. Okay, just change the name a bit. So, today I'll be creating an infinite runner in Unity. To start off, I've got some very basic pictures here. As you can see, I've got a thing for the ground. I also drew a little aerial bird. I have a man walking, so he's got his base stance, 1 step, 2 steps. We've got him jumping, we've got a cacti for him to jump over, and him sliding. So, without further ado, let me open up a new Unity project. So this is going to be a 2D core game, and I will call it Infinite Runner. You know what? Let's call it Frank's Infinite Runner. We'll wait a second for that to open up. Drink some coffee in the meantime. So pretty much this game is going to be like the Google Dinosaur, something very simple. The things that we'll need to do, maybe the hardest parts, will be to actually animate the character. We're going to need to work on, I'm not even sure how I'm going to do this, but adding a collider around the character that will change from when he's standing up to when he's sliding. Perhaps I'll do that by just turning on and off a game object. That would help out, but it would make the trigger a bit harder. Unless I put the trigger on the monster and cacti themselves. That's possible. We also need to decide, do we want to use the velocity with a rigid body, or do we want to just edit the vector 3? And I think we will just edit the vector 3 today instead of actually doing that. We also need to get the ground sliding across the screen. And I guess the final thing would be to decide how to have the screen layout. I think I'll have it in portrait mode with some settings, and I was thinking of having it to where you can use swipes on the screen, keyboard buttons, a controller, or actual on-screen buttons. So that would be 4 separate things to do to control your character. And then of course there's a game over and the timer. The timer should be pretty easy too, so maybe that will be the first thing that we do after setting up the UI. Okay. Okay, and it looks like it's actually opening. Yes, it is. Here we go. So as you see, we've got a blank screen. Let me rearrange it a little bit. I want my game screen over here. I'm going to change it from free aspect to the mobile portrait, that 1080 by 1920. And then let me add a canvas, so just UI image and it will add the canvas along with it. Get into the canvas, screen space overlay, scale with screen size 1080 by 1920. I always struggle with this part. I have found like one group of settings that works perfectly with it, and I always forget it, and I always tell myself that I need to write it down, and I never do, but we'll go with this for now. Okay, next thing is we want so this is going to be the game background, and let's have it take this, actually take this, and we'll set it, what, 1080 1920, what about 540, negative 540 from the top. We'll make the height, I don't know, would another 540 be too bad? I don't think that's bad at all. In fact, I think that's just about perfect. Okay, so that's going to be our game background area. The next thing we want is something like a total background. So UI, another image, and just call this background. Set it here, and let's go with a gray. Yeah, let's set it to 100 all around. Next thing, let's actually toss the game background on that background. We're going to want a settings button, so UI image, and this is going to be the settings button, which we'll put in the top left, about 50 and 50 away from the sides. Is that a bit too small? Let's see that 150. I like it at 150 a bit more. We need a score, so let's go UI Text Mesh Pro, because I've been using Text Mesh Pro lately. Let's call it score text. Toss it up here, negative 50, negative 50. Set the width to, oh, I don't know, 500. And the height to, oh, let's go with 250. Is that too much? Maybe if we set the width to 600. We need a font asset. Oh yes, let's import the Text Mesh Pro Essentials. That's going to take a second. And you know what, it's super basic, so we'll go with the given. I want to import my own stuff, but no need. Okay, we can put it at about 145. And this is going to be the time. So right now I'll set it at 0. Oh yes, I actually want it to be aligned to the left, and let's see how. Oh, there we go. Looks like a height of 180 is just perfect. Okay, so we have the score, we have the settings button. I should actually import one of my settings buttons that I created for another game. Let's see, where do I have my icons? I kind of wanted a settings gear, but you know what? I can go with menu dots or a hamburger menu instead. Let me look around for a little bit longer. Match 3 gems. Okay, I suppose I'm just taking too much time now. So, yeah, as we said, we're doing everything super basic, so even if I can't find it, I'm just going to go with my hamburger menu. Of course, I do need to keep everything nice, so I'll create a new folder which I will name resources, which is kind of like a default Unity thing. You should name the file with resources, otherwise you can't access it from script. And I will call this images. Let me move my hamburger menu into my images as well. Let me also create another folder which I will call sprites. Let's say character sprites and GUI images. That's a bit better. And actually, in my character sprites, if you remember the images that I just showed, I had, or not just showed, but showed at the beginning, I had created quite a few basic images for the infinite runner. All of them are not very pretty, but usable. And here they are. Let me double check that they are showing up as sprite. I've had too many images not show up as sprite, and then you can't use it later. But looks like everything is just fine. Now, I was pretty sure there was something I wanted. Oh well. Okay. And at the bottom we are going to have buttons for jumping and whatnot, but we'll do that later. Now, let's create one more folder, which we'll call scripts. And in the scripts, let's create our first script. This will be the timer script, and this will control the timer up here. Once it finishes loading, I will drag it over here. Let me zoom in a bit so it's easier to see on the YouTube. And let's get rid of the start and update. So the first thing is I'm going to want to be able to access this from other scripts, so I need to make it a singleton. So I'll say public static, I believe, timer script instance, and I'm sure I will get an error if that's the wrong word. I use it all the time and I always forget. So then if instance equals null, then instance equals this, then else if instance doesn't equal this, then we destroy this. Although since this is a single screen game, we should never get to this function here. Finally, let's get a reference to the text so we can edit it. So TMP text using TMP Pro, and we'll say score text, and let's keep another float called time, which will start off at 0, and then we want an update, and we also need a bool, so bool game started. Finally, a public void start game, which will set game started equals true and time equals 0, and then finally score text dot text equals zero. Then in our update, if game started time plus equals time dot delta time, and then score text dot text equals the integer form of time, of course added to a string. And then one last thing, so we have a public void stop game, which says game started equals false. And just to test all of this out, I'm going to say if input dot get key down is equal to k, then start game. If input dot get key down is L, then stop game. And let's test all of this out now. First, let's create an empty object. We'll call it the, you know what? No. We'll just add the timer to the score text. Drag the score text in there. Press start, press play. And now we press K and the timer is working. If I press L, the timer should stop. And I press K again. I mean, if I couldn't even get that to work, what am I even doing here? So that's our timer script working perfectly fine. let's go here now and make a game controller. So create C# script game controller. And actually go back to the timer script. So a typical timer script controls the time of the game. And let's even get public float get time where we return time. Okay. A singleton instance of the game, so that of the script, so it may be accessed from other scripts without a reference. The text object that time will be displayed on the time of the time passed since start game was called. 1 second.
Did you call me? What do you want? Right now?